Welcome to the podcast of School Beyond Limitations. In this podcast, you will learn how to guide your child through their school life with the intention to help them find their unique essence that will allow your daughter, your son to live a fulfilled and meaningful life.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another special podcast today. And today it's once again myself, Nayeef, and Martina Geromin here with us. And I'd like to ask Martina, we have just finished our teacher training session, another one of it, and you have been doing this for as long as SBL is existing, for 5-6 years now. Share with us the experiences that you go through while doing these sessions. What does it come to you?
Well, first and foremost, thank you for this question, Nayeef. I think it was very clear to me from the very beginning, as the designer of SBL, the initial designer of SBL, that, something that is so different from conventional schooling can't be just applied without going through a certain training and a certain understanding of the philosophy, but then also the philosophy and how it's applied in real life. And whilst at the beginning you were talking about, I've been doing it now for 5-6 years. Actually, I've been doing it for longer now. At the beginning, it was just different because when we were really at the very, very start, there was just me, who did the pilot program. And then, of course, it was clear that alone you can do a lot, but it's just limited still. And School Beyond Limitations is actually named School Beyond Limitations because we want to go beyond that. And then we started somewhere, right? And I started by reaching out basically to former colleagues, and I informed them about the project and about the piloting project and how it went. And so one of our facilitators who is currently with us, I remember I met her, at an European island in the Mediterranean Sea. I went there because I had a meeting with a co-founder, who is an entrepreneur and the mother of the first piloting students. And she basically was ready for her children to join. I shared the concept with her and she said that resonates with what I would like education to be, and I would like my children to benefit from it. And so I went there and I reached out to this former colleague of mine who lives not that far away from that island, and she flew in. And so we met. First we had a number of conversations, about the concept. I shared everything, with her. And then we met there, and it was clear to her, after having met, she knew me already because I was the head of school at where she was a co-worker. And so we were able to work together already in the past. And she also got to know Katarina, the other co-founder of School Beyond Limitations, and then the students and what they, her daughters who were completely fond of School Beyond Limitations and said, this is so cool and this is so great. And it had changed their lives, because we are talking here about students who were kind of really giving up on schooling because they were so frustrated about schooling and they didn't want to go there anymore and they didn't see the purpose in schooling. And suddenly they just opened up. And then, this colleague joined me and she said, I just know, although it's a risk, I know it's a risk, but I want this shift to happen because I firmly believe in this. And what happened is that at the beginning, I was still teaching as well constantly, and we had regular meetings and we co-taught and we underwent basically nearly a few months just, by mentoring. I remember one story when we had our first residential week. We started the year with a residential week before we even went online. And Kiki is her name. She came along, and after 3 days, Kiki said, no, I can't do that. Martina, I can't do that. And then I remember we sat together and I said, Kiki, what is the purpose why you came here? What do you think? Why did you do it? And then she talked about the purpose and why. And then I said, then you are in the right place, and I shared with her one of my previous experiences where I became for the first time a head of school. And after 3 weeks, I went to the owners of the school and I said, I can't do that. It's too much. How can I possibly do that? And those owners said to me, if we have chosen you, then we trust you. And that was enough for me to say, okay, then I move forward. And thank God I did. And the same I did with Kiki. And I said, Kiki, if you are here, there is a reason for you to being here. And we do this together. And then we did the lesson plan together again, for the online session, because the offline was okay, because she's a very steady facilitator, of course, a great, inspiring one. And then we did the session together, and I was the student once, and and we just shared, and from there, we had this mentoring sessions sometimes every day, every week. We talked about everything constantly, and then of course, people started showing interest. Other teachers started showing interest in School Beyond Limitations. And I remember another team member who is still with us, she reached out and she said, I'm seeing this online and I've seen about School Beyond Limitations. Could I come? And this is a teacher who actually was at university level. And now she is still with us, And of course, I needed to coach them and so forth. This was my introduction. It didn't end there. And then it still is, important for everyone from the very beginning. Even for Kiki, we still meet on a regular basis and we still, come together and we share experiences, and Kiki shares experiences. And when she's got questions, it's a culture. So we have created a culture. And this mind shift, this shift of looking and acting and thinking and acting globally in such a non-judgmental way, that is the underlying pillar also of School Beyond Limitations. That's something that even if you are open for that, in the application process, it doesn't come across regularly. That's why, there came a time when we had more and more people joining us, facilitators and teachers. We call them facilitators because we facilitate learning, and yet they are teachers. It was clear to me, I can't do it on a one-on-one basis anymore. It's not possible, and there's just a limited time. And so I basically put together, a training. And one of our facilitators who also joined us at the beginning, helped me throughout the process to deliver this. And this facilitator actually has left SBL in the meantime, but at the core, even that person transfers SBL spirit elsewhere, which is great. So it was clear to set up this program. So I put everything together, and then I shared with my colleague, and I said, this is what I think we need to do. And so we just went through this process for the first time. I think you're right, it was 6 years ago. And what I noticed, Nayeef, and that was really astonishing, and this is a recurring experience. What I noticed is that those teachers, facilitators who joined the sessions, they shifted. They just loved the sessions so much that they said at the end, well, how comes that it's already finished, And we are talking about people who had to work throughout the day and met in the evening. And our sessions, sometimes, we had always 2-hour sessions twice per week in the evening from 7 to 9 p.m. And most of the time we never finished in 2 hours because everyone just wanted to stay longer. And one could notice that shift was taking place in their understanding, although they were coming to us, or they are coming to us because they feel that a shift needs to happen. They realize that this shift is possible because there's something out there which is not just philosophical. It is philosophical, yes, but it's philosophy in practice that has shaped. I mean, you were part of this last session, Nayeef, yourself, and yesterday this was a recurring experience, right? Where people basically said, I remember one of the facilitators who joined us this time around said, I would like to find out about the culture at the beginning, because I always ask, why are you here? And this person said, I want to find out about the culture, what the culture is all about. And yesterday, this very specific person said, wow, I realized this is something that's really grounded and it's embedded in everything. And it's such a pity that it's over already, because it's building culture. It's building culture. It's building something different. It's not something that is there and you do it once, and then it's there. It's something that requires constant attention and constant presence of all the values that we are preaching and doing, and constant co-creation and constant conversation, and so that the conversation around all the terminology, is understood, because terminology can also be misinterpreted, whether, when we talk about, yesterday we also talked about assessment, and it was interesting to see that people and everyone coming along through this process now sees the assessment really, from that perspective. If we were just lecturing it at the beginning, what assessment is all about at SBL, then it would have been a lecture, but it wouldn't have been ingrained. Whilst yesterday, I didn't lecture about assessment. I started, what do you think on the basis of what we've been now learning together so far, assessment could be at SBL? And everything that came out from facilitators who were present was very much in line with what we are doing.
No, yes, absolutely. And I think just to add to everything you just said, it was also noticed yesterday how they felt about the training to be over so quickly, and they wanted to follow up. Some of them wanted to still stay in touch through via the WhatsApp group that we had. And you talked about how you started off with this, training journey, and now it's taking place in a much more larger space. I think in the future you'll have more of these coming, but the core message that I received while I was doing the training is that how this training gave them a shift in perspective, and not only a perspective when it comes to being a facilitator or a teacher, but also a perspective of the education in general, and the perspective of how to actually be there to serve the students and to serve the people who trust in them, right? And I
Absolutely.
mean, this has just been beautiful to listen to all those experts open up to you and to everyone, and just say that how much more there is to explore when it comes to education than just the structured syllabuses that are being constantly asked to us to just give out to people.
Absolutely. And that's, I think, the beauty about it. It's this understanding of that we are constant learners, and we do it together and we co create together. And that's something that requires really this open mindedness and this understanding. Yes, I may bring, as you rightly said, we had experts present with over 40 years of experience in different roles as head and consultant in different roles, and others who were researchers and university lecturers and whatsoever. They bring a lot of rigor, a lot of knowledge, and yet, it is important for all of us to be aware. Yes, let's stay humble. Let's use what I already know, of course, in a way that serves. You mentioned it just before, when we clearly know what I'm doing is purposeful, and because I want to serve others and myself as well, and then together we can create, co-create, and out-create. Then this is a different kind of mindset, and then we are not
Mm.
fixated on something.
And this is a thought coming from an expert's point of view, but you just before our recording, we were talking about how a lot of the students from SBL are wanting to experience this teacher's training and wanting to become a facilitator at some point at a later stage, right? Why do you think that is happening? Why do you think, there's so many students who are interested in this?
I think I'm not completely certain because from my understanding and talking to the students, it comes from their clarity within themselves that they say what we are doing is so powerful and makes them, really notice who they are, because I've noticed and experienced students who underwent really very critical situations, and where they were close to committing suicide, and now they say, no, now I've found my purpose, and this is exactly what we need, and I don't want to become just a teacher elsewhere, because in the conventional school I became, this suicidal person, and now I realize that something else is possible, and people listen to me, and my voice also counts, and I think that's also something that they see, that their essence is seen, that they are in a safe space, that they can also, go through lots of different waves, but we will not let go of them in the sense of giving up. Of course, it may also happen that sometimes we need to give up, if the student is not coming along, or if the family is not coming along because they are not completely, convinced about what we are doing, which can happen, and that's for sure, and happens also at School Beyond Limitations. But when this magical collaboration partnership is happening, then really, miracles, we call them miracles, although they are not miracles because it's just a logical consequence, and it takes time. We need to be patient, and I think this is what the students see, and they say we don't give up, we are seen. The main thing that we always hear, that students say, I feel secure in myself. Yeah, I am myself. What more do you need to have in your life? And that's not a thinking of superiority, that's a thinking of appreciation for yourself, but also at the same time of appreciation towards others, because it's not seeing somebody else more important. I'm appreciating and respecting the other person and myself as well.
I mean, just how powerful is that? And I mean, just for everyone, I mean, we did in our previous conversations talk about the whole idea of institutions and universities and schools and how it came along. So initially, the idea of university was that it was a place that offered a space for everyone to come in, and then they used to discuss and practice their intellectual practices, right?
Yes.
So I mean, the teacher's training is very similar to this, but it's just a process to formally begin with the school
Yes.
process and become a school facilitator. But what if it just becomes a space for everyone to just learn of what it is like? I mean, is there a possibility that in the future SBL would offer a formal teacher's training for everyone, would not just to become a teacher at SBL, but just to understand and more in depth about the role?
Absolutely, Nayeef. I think this is certainly something that we would like to happen because it's interesting for everyone. And honestly speaking, in the past, we also had parents joining us. We also had, people who were just interested in education joining us. And they just took it away and they said, it really opened my way of thinking, and it also changed my practice, and of course, and you also mentioned before, and then we need to come to an end today, that people, when they are finished, they want to keep in touch, they want to stay in touch, because it's not ending here. It's like personal development is not ending with 3 weeks of meditation, right? It's a practice that you need to keep. I came across one of co-workers lately who was not in their best shape, and I just asked, are you still practicing all of those techniques? And they said, no, I'm not journaling anymore. I realized that I'm not doing that anymore, and I invited that person to do it again. In 2 days, 2 days after, that person felt better again. It's something, it's a process, as you rightly said.
Well, thank you very much, Martina, for sharing these personal experiences. And for everyone, if you're interested, do message the school, do message Martina for anything that you want to know about the teacher's training or just become a student. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nayeef. At School Beyond Limitations, we support our students find their unique essence. Feel free to share the content of this podcast with other parents. We are here to show that your children can, indeed, bring their unique essence into life. So, reach out to us if you think that this is what you'd like your daughter, your son to experience, or apply through our website. Also, leave your comments, your questions, or your review about the podcast. Share it with others. And, as you know, sharing is caring.